Hi, my name is Pat O'Connor. I'm the broker owner of the Veritas Real Estate Group. We are located in Coral Springs, Florida. And today I want to talk about why cash is king in a real estate transaction. And the reasons why, there's three primary reasons, and they have to do with contract contingencies. And two of these exist when there's financing involved. And it just makes the deal that much more likely to fall apart than if it was a cash deal. So the first of these contingency is an appraisal. You don't need an appraisal if you're paying cash. So if an appraiser comes in and they determine the value of the property to be less than the purchase price, the buyer has the legal right to walk away from the contract. They also have the right to negotiate with the seller, and the seller could lower the selling price to the appraisal value. That frequently happens. Or they could also split the difference between the appraisal value and the purchase price with the buyer, split it 50-50. That also happens. But it could be that the buyer just feels like they've been cheated. Buyer's remorse may be kicking in. They may be feeling a lot of stress already about whether or not they can make the mortgage payments. So a part of them may be relieved if they can walk away. Now, the second contingency is loan approval. They've applied for a loan, doesn't mean it's going to be approved. Let's change that to experienced agents working with sellers will request in the MLS to have both a letter from the loan officer saying that they are pre-approved for the mortgage. And in my experience, this pre-approval letter has become mainly meaningless. It used to mean something, now it doesn't. It used to mean actually a lender has approved them for a loan. And now the mortgage brokers will just write a pre-qualification letter and then call it a pre-approval letter, and it doesn't mean much. So what the experienced agents are doing are requesting a DU approval notice. DU is Desktop Underwriter. It's a software that loan officers use to get a pre-approval based on the criteria that the software looks at. And if it's approved in this software, there's an excellent chance it will be approved by a lender. So if you're a seller and you're listening to this video, make sure that the seller does both things. They get a pre-approval letter and they also get the results from Desktop Underwriter submitted with the offer. With cash, you don't have a loan approval deadline because there is no loan. So if a buyer is getting financed and they've cooperated with the loan officer and submitted all their documents in a timely fashion, the standard realtor contract here in Florida gives them the right to cancel the deal, get a refund of their good faith money, and move on to the next deal. They don't have to close. They could negotiate with the seller if they think maybe they can get a closing, if they have that they could get an approval, maybe if they have another 15 days and they can submit it to another lender. Or maybe the lender they submitted it to is taking longer than expected, so they would want a grace period. The seller does not necessarily have to grant this extension of the loan approval. Maybe the seller has received backup offers that are better than the buyer's offer. So maybe they want to go with another offer and let that buyer just go. So that's another deadline that doesn't exist if the buyer is paying cash. The third one is the closing date. Suppose the approval was okay, but they needed an extension to get the loan approved. Maybe they put 30 days for loan approval in the contract and it's taking 45 days. So now they did 45 days and they got the loan approval, but they've missed the closing date, right? Because the agent, when they filled out the contract, calculated that they would get the loan approval such and such by such and such a date, and then they could close on such and such a date. Well, now that date has slipped by. Neither the buyer or the seller are under any obligation to negotiate an extension of the deadline. So if the deadline slips, they can continue if they both agree to continue. If nobody says, hey, we're going to cancel, that's fine. The deal's still on the table. You should get it on addendum and, put it in writing that the closing date will be such and such a date. But they are under no obligation to do so. So that's another thing with the finance deals. There's these little hiccups that can happen that are not going to happen with a cash deal. The one thing that I would add to this, if you are the seller's agent, make sure you receive proof of funds if they are submitting a cash offer. You want to know, in fact, that they have the money in the bank or in the brokerage account to actually pay the purchase price. All right? So at that point, then you can be pretty well assured, unless something really bad happens with the home inspection, that the deal's going to close. So in summary, to me, cash is king. If I was in fact a seller and I had received two offers and one was $2,000 or $3,000 less than the finance offer, but it was in cash with proof of funds, I would jump at the chance. Everything else being equal, I personally would jump at the chance to accept the cash offer instead of the financed offer. So that's my 2 cents worth. Take it or leave it, but I've been in the business a while. All right, I will see you next week. Bye.